It was a scorching afternoon in the heart of the city, a day when the sun seemed to spotlight every misstep and every injustice. Officer Thomas Reed, a man notorious not only for his arrogance, but also for his deep-seated prejudices, was patrolling his usual beat on 7th Avenue. For years, Thomas had built a reputation for targeting Black individuals, often letting his racist biases dictate his actions, and today, his long-held prejudices were about to collide with fate. He believed that his badge gave him the right to decide who belonged and who didn't. He carried himself with an air of untouchable superiority, blissfully unaware that his own downfall was just around the corner. Across the busy street, emerging from a small, bustling cafe, walked Darren Parker. Darren was dressed sharply in a tailored suit, exuding a quiet confidence that drew the eye of anyone who noticed him. As Darren's dark complexion caught the light, Thomas's ingrained racist notions flared up. He immediately associated Darren's appearance with the very stereotypes he had long harbored. But behind that calm exterior was a secret few would have guessed. Darren had just been promoted to captain of the very precinct where Thomas served. A promotion that was as much a testament to his integrity as it was to his resilience in the face of adversity. Thomas Reed, his eyes glued to his radio and his ego fueled by years of unchecked authority, barely registered Darren's presence at first. Yet, as his gaze shifted, something about Darren's composed stride and dignified air set off an alarm in Thomas's biased mind. Every step Darren took reinforced the baseless assumptions Thomas had about Black men in positions of power, a notion Thomas had clung to despite the changing times. Without a second thought, Thomas stepped out of his patrol car, his heavy boots thudding against the pavement as he advanced directly toward Darren. "Hey, what are you doing around here?" Thomas barked, his voice laced with aggression and contempt that cut through the warm afternoon air. Darren paused, his brow furrowing slightly in surprise, but his response remained measured. "I'm on my way to a community outreach meeting," Darren replied calmly, his tone polite yet assertive. Thomas sneered. "You don't look like you belong on the street. I need to see some ID now." His words dripped with disdain as he gestured roughly, his hand hovering near his service weapon. Darren slowly reached into his jacket for his wallet. But before he could produce his identification, Thomas's prejudice exploded into reckless action. Fueled by a mix of unwarranted suspicion and old, poisonous biases, Thomas lashed out, swinging his fist in a swift, unprovoked motion that connected squarely with Darren's jaw. The force of the blow sent Darren stumbling backward. A small crowd of passers-by, who had been absorbed in their own worlds just moments before, now stopped dead in their tracks. Shock rippled through the air. Darren's hand flew to his face as he absorbed the sting of the impact, yet, remarkably, he did not fall. Instead, he steadied himself and fixed his gaze on Thomas. "You just made a very serious mistake," Darren said slowly, his voice calm but brimming with undeniable authority. Thomas, still puffed up with misplaced pride, scoffed. "Oh, yeah? And what mistake would that be?" he challenged, his tone still laced with arrogance despite his aggressive act. With a measured step forward, Darren's eyes locked onto Thomas's. "I'm Darren Parker, the new captain of this precinct." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle in the charged air. "And you've just assaulted your superior officer." For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Thomas's confident facade faltered. His eyes widened as he tried to process what he'd just heard. "Captain Parker? You're kidding, right?" he stuttered, his voice betraying the panic that was now creeping in. Without missing a beat, Darren produced his official badge from his jacket pocket and held it up for all to see. The murmurs of the onlookers grew louder, and Thomas's bravado melted into disbelief and fear. Realizing the gravity of his error, Thomas took a hesitant step back. But before he could utter another word, Darren calmly pulled out his phone and dialed the precinct dispatch. "This is Captain Parker," he stated clearly. "I need backup on 7th Avenue immediately. Officer Thomas Reed has just assaulted me. Stand by for further instructions." Within minutes, the sound of approaching sirens punctuated the tense silence. Fellow officers, alerted by the commotion and the undeniable sight of their colleague in distress, arrived on the scene. Among them was Sergeant Maria Gomez, a seasoned veteran known for her unwavering commitment to justice and fairness. Captain Parker, Sergeant Gomez greeted with a firm nod, her eyes flicking between Darren and Thomas. What exactly happened here? Thomas's voice, once so full of bluster, now trembled as he tried to muster an excuse. I thought he was causing trouble, he stammered weakly, his words drowned out by the murmurs of the gathered crowd and the disapproving stares of his peers. Enough, Sergeant Gomez interjected sharply. You assaulted a superior officer, regardless of any assumptions you made. I'm placing you under arrest. As Thomas's fellow officers moved in to secure him, the reality of the moment crashed down on him. The authority he had so arrogantly wielded was now crumbling into dust. Bystanders, many recording the incident on their phones, captured every moment, a digital reminder that no act of abuse would go unnoticed in an age where truth spread faster than lies. In the aftermath, as Thomas was led away in handcuffs, Captain Parker addressed the crowd. Let this be a lesson, he said, his voice resonating with both sorrow and determination. No one is above accountability, and prejudice will not be tolerated. Our duty is to protect and serve every member of our community with fairness and respect. Over the following weeks, the incident sparked widespread discussion about police accountability and systemic racism. Captain Parker oversaw a thorough investigation into the matter, determined to ensure that justice was not only served, but also seen to be served. The story of that fateful afternoon became a catalyst for change within the precinct, prompting critical conversations about power, responsibility, and the true meaning of service. Officer Thomas Reed, once a man who thought his badge made him invincible, found himself facing severe disciplinary action and criminal charges. His actions, rooted in deep-seated racist bias, had irrevocably altered his life and career. And as the community rallied for justice, many saw this as a turning point, a stark reminder that even those entrusted with power must be held to the highest standards of conduct. That day on 7th Avenue, a single act of violence transformed into a beacon of hope for change. It was a day when the scales of justice tilted back toward fairness, and when a new leader emerged to guide the way forward, a leader who reminded everyone that integrity, respect, and accountability are the true marks of honor. Thank you for joining me for this story time. Remember, every day offers us a chance to stand up against injustice and to be the change we wish to see in the world. Stay vigilant, stay compassionate, and until next time, keep the conversation alive.